Hey guys, what's up? Kalamazi here, and today we're actually going to start taking a look at Heroic and very soon Mythic and Mythic Plus dungeons. 305 item levels require undebated a queue for random heroics, and I finally reached 305 a few days ago. With all the raid testing and other things I had going on, it took a few days longer than what I've liked, but we're finally there. This run right here is a Heroic Shrine of the Storm run as Demonology. I'm trying a bit of a different build than last time most of the other dungeons that I've run, mainly taking Grimoire Service over Inner Demons and Soul Conduit. The build was mentioned to me passing about a week or so ago, and its strong suits were supposed to be sustained AoE more so than just implosion space damage on larger trash pulls that last over 10 seconds or so, while also offering a bit more lenience when it comes to movement on boss encounters. Having Grimoire Service line up with your demonic commander cooldown also makes it very powerful every minute and a half, so I'm pretty anxious to see how it actually goes. I'll have a link to the logs in the description below if you want to take an in-depth look yourself. The first boss we encounter is Aqua Seer. He's a pretty straightforward and simple boss. In phase 1 he'll randomly charge near a group member, and after the charge will cast an ability which places small white circles under your feet that deal damage, so move out of them quickly. In phase 2 he splits into 3 adds that need to be killed, and we found that focusing one down very similar to Shade and Medivh in Upper Karazhan was best. After a certain period of time they will do a charge at the boss, but having 3 adds instead of 1 makes him much harder to dodge, so be careful here. After they're dead he returns to phase 1 and you simply just kill him quickly. The damage meter here shows the Windwalker in first, followed by myself as Demonology and the Warrior in third. One thing to make note of here is that while I am able to run Heroic, Mythic, and Mythic Plus dungeons, certain players' item levels are going to be much higher or potentially even much lower than ours as well, which can lead to a bit of disparity on the damage meter. We also need to account for the fact that it is a Windwalker monk and they're still very overpowered at the moment. The summary here shows something very interesting. Normally we see Fell Firebolt as our number 1 ability, however we actually see Melee here as number 1. Taking a look at it, I noticed that Melee is also including our Grimoire of Service, Felguard damage, and it's actually a good bit. Seeing as there's a bit of movement in the fight, I was surprised to see it beating out Fell Firebolt, but it is a good thing and I'm actually surprised and happy to see the talent performing this well on single target, as we know it's also very good on trash packs and AoE. The second boss consists of 2 actual bosses, and from what I've seen, the vast majority of all the groups seem to focus on the female boss first while keeping her slicing blast ability interrupted. Getting hit by the winds places a stacking debuff on you that increases your damage taken by a certain amount from subsequent attacks, and it also stacks. Her interrupt ability is something that also needs to be interrupted whenever possible, as it's a pretty big pain to deal with. Once she's dead, the other boss can be killed, and he does melee pretty hard, so that's something to keep in mind. Damage here is pretty consistent with the last boss. We see the Windwalker in first, followed by us in second, and the Warrior in third who died earlier in the encounter. Some ads are pulled at the end, and I would imagine that did inflate the Windwalker's numbers a bit, but he was still a good bit ahead at that point regardless. The summary shows melee as our number one ability again, but this time Fell Firebolt is much closer on a fight with less movement and downtime. Implosion did have a bit of play here as well, but that was mainly just at the end of the encounter with the ads being pulled that weren't a part of the actual boss fight. We do see Shadow Bolt here ahead of Demon Bolt again. While a good bit of that is RNG from Molten Core procs, we do have 2 to 3 less active imps from not having the Inner Demon's talent selected, which does mean a tad less Molten Core proc, which is something to keep in mind when you're running Grimoire of Service as well. The third boss we encounter is Lord Storm Sultan. He's a pretty simple and honestly sort of underwhelming fight. He will mind control a random party member, and to break them you have to deal a substantial amount of damage to them. He will also summon purple spheres to fixate and chase party members. If hit by one, it stuns you for 5 or so seconds. I dropped the demonic gateway before the encounter to potentially use it and get a good bit of distance here between myself and the orb. A demonic circle would be nice here as well if you have the talent chosen, but I had the reduced Shadow Fury cooldown talent as well, so I wouldn't really have the option of using the circle here. There's actually a trend here if you notice, and damage shows the Windwalker in first, followed by us, then the Warrior, again in third. None of the DPS were actually mind controlled here, so the damage meters are not skewed really in any way. There can be a decent bit of movement with the orb kiting here, so I expected melee to be ahead of Fell Firebolt here a bit more than normal. Like I thought, the damage report does show that melee is our biggest damage contributor here, actually followed by Legion Strike, Demon Fire, and then Fell Firebolt. Implosion was used a few times to try and burst our mind-controlled healer out of the MC, but in retrospect, I think it would be better to simply save a few Molten Core procs and not use your Implosion there, as you just simply lose too much single target damage when you swap back to the boss. One thing I did want to mention here is that after Lord Stormsong, there's a bit of a swim to the next boss. If you're a Warlock, you can buff your party members with Unending Breath and a swim speed increase here as well. Make sure to actually have Unending Breath in your bars for this part of the dungeon, as gaining even a few seconds here will be a thing in Mythic Plus. I think the last time I actually remember using Unending Breath was for that dreaded Serpent Shrine Cavern swim in Burning Crusade, so seeing and having actual use again is pretty awesome. The final boss's name is Volzith the Whisperer. He's actually a pretty long and interesting fight. He summons tentacles over the course of the fight that slam the ground, so be sure to move far away from them. In Phase 2 he sends you to another realm of sorts, and summons 2 ads that must be killed to return to Phase 1. After the first intermission, he will repeat his phase 1 mechanics, but also summon small manifestation adds that need to be killed as well. He'll alternate between phase 1 and 2 until your group actually kills him.
Beneath the tides, your truth awaits. Of the drow.
The damage meters here, once again, are pretty consistent with what we've seen over the other bosses. The Windwalker is in first, followed by us and the Warrior. If we were using an actual countdown to pull the bosses, being able to precast Demon Bolt is much better than Shadow Bolt, as it allows you to cast your Felguard into Call Dreadstalkers, cast one Shadow Bolt into a hand of Gul'dan, and then use your Demonic Commander versus having to cast 2 actual Shadow Bolts. Either way, the fight is pretty straightforward, does not have really any elements of surprise, which you see phase 1 and phase 2. One thing to note here is if you're coming out of phase 1 and Bloodlust or Heroism was used, you'll most likely have a good bit of summoned imps with you going into phase 2. It's good to have some sort of way of tracking your imp count and remaining energy or duration. If you have a large amount expiring soon, using Implosion on one of the adds is a solid option. The breakdown shows that melee was once again our main contributing source of damage by a large margin. Demon Bolt was actually second due to a good amount of Molten Core procs, followed by Legion Strike and then Fellfire Bolt. We do see that Implosion was cast 3 times, which could account for a small loss of Molten Core procs, but we still did have a good bit during the encounter. So taking a look at the overall trash damage done, we see the Windwalker was ahead by a good bit, and then myself and the Warrior were very close in second and third respectively. The thing with Shrine of the Storm is that a large portion of the trash packs consists of about 6 to 8 mobs that have very little health and die very quickly. This obviously favors classes with quick burst abilities like Windwalkers and Warriors over other classes. While we do have Implosion for these packs, they also normally have 1 to 2 larger health mobs present within them, which make padding with Implosion sort of useless at times. It also leaves you with less imps for the next trash pack as well, which is another negative. The breakdown does show that Implosion was our main source of damage, followed by Legion Strike from both our Felguard pet and our Grimoire Service Felguard, then he and the Gul'dan's impact damage. I was really interested to see how Grimoire Service both felt and performed here, and I'll admit that I was pretty impressed. I think in dungeons like Waycrest Manor or Temple of Sethraliss, where there are larger trash packs that live for a good bit of time, it'll have even more of an impact, as a good bit of the trash dies very quickly in Shrine of the Storm. Having a CD lineup with your demonic commander is also very nice for the damage boost it provides. I did enjoy this build a good bit and will definitely be testing it a good bit more as well before I pass judgment on it, and which I prefer for certain dungeons the most. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you thought of this new build, Shrine of the Storm, and the overall run in the comments below. Hopefully over the course of the next few days we'll be moving into Mythics and Mythic Plus, so if you want to see this and other BFA or WoW content, be sure to hit those like, share, and subscribe buttons. I release new content every 2 or 3 days. Thanks so much, guys, for the support, and I'll see you guys in battle for Azeroth. Peace.